Welcome to Masterpieces of American Cinema. Today, we'll be discussing Ready Player One. The kindest thing I can say about Ready Player One is that it's certainly on par with the original novel by Ernest Cline, in that it has a long list about media the protagonist enjoys, a progressive line about how trans women don't count as women, and a section that explores healthy sexual exploration. I will also admit some performances are rather well done, and that a few of the music choices were endearing, but that will only lead me to talk about the major awesomeness I see in this movie. A bit of brief exposition for starters. Ready Player One is a story set in a supposedly cyberpunkish future, where life sucks and people end up retreating into a massive virtual reality video game known as the Oasis, created by a recently deceased billionaire genius named James Halliday. The plot revolves around a gamer, Wade Watts, known by his avatar Parzival, and his entourage consisting of Artemis, H, Daito, and Shoto looking for multiple keys within a video game that will unlock an Easter egg that in turn hands over the wealth of Halliday and the game's whoever finds the Easter egg first. Said Easter egg also revolves around being obsessively good at video games while being able to crack some billionaire's life open. Opposing the protagonist is a corporation named IOI that wants to seize the Oasis and load it with ads, premiums, and other transactions. For starters, the premise of this movie is pretty realistic, in that any government would let $500 billion and a game that has essentially replaced reality in a certain way fall into the controls of a very smart boy who can happen to play video games and become a celebrity. The entire premise is to justify that in the future, the skill that will let you become the most important person on Earth is how well you can play video games and memorize every single bit of pop trivia culture, which is pretty original for a Hollywood picture. It subtly gives nods to fans whose life is dedicated to loving all their favorite games, movies, and even music. It's great to love pop culture and know some trivia, and the fact that this story's premise is defined by it and that it somehow makes you a better person is just a whole way to say, hey, that game and money you wasted on our products will make you rich, which is a really positive message that everyone can get behind. Unlike a lot of cyberpunk, where skills like hacking, charisma, planning, and a bit of combat knowledge here and there are what can defeat the bad guys, here it is loving pop culture. The pop culture itself is limited to interests that mainly white American guys are into when growing up. I know this is a cliché line in such an analysis, but even Americentric cyberpunk stories like Blade Runner do a very good job showing how global corporations spread their products and properties abroad. The media we see in Oasis has a diversity of references to everything outside Western culture. Even the music, which I thought was good, surprisingly included the iconic African American rap of the 80s because everyone loves 80s rap music, especially Americans like Ernest Cline. I'm not saying you had to focus on all aspects of global mass media, but the film really does have everything you could ever ask for. The only mass entity that seems to be after the Easter egg is the American IOI Corporation, and the fact that a massive game with tons of data go unchecked in a gaming competition makes a lot of logical sense. Foreign corporations have seemingly no interest even though there should be a big fight over it with multiple private armies, which is absolutely perfect storytelling. Props to the scriptwriters. And speaking of private armies, it really seems really cool for the main antagonist to get arrested in the end because the one thing that almost always happens in cyberpunk is rich people getting their comeuppance, like in real life. If the cops are present in the end, then that's really good representation from the most oppressed groups in the world. The conflict of the movie is very consistent as well. IOI's goals involve turning the Oasis into a hollow AAA game with ads, and this movie is being a giant ad in and of itself, but like a really good Super Bowl ad. The movie features cameo upon cameo pop culture references, which is very much welcome for media that is still ongoing and fairly trying to sell you stuff. What hammers the point is that the main characters are all OC avatars, but the background characters we see are from existing media. I just love it. And apparently there hasn't been much pop culture in the decades between now and the setting, because you can't sell us what doesn't exist. Again, really smart on the scriptwriter's part. Now, even though I love her as a character, and an example of generally positive representation in video games, Tracer from Overwatch's cameo was hands down my favorite because she symbolized what is so great about this movie. She appears 4 times throughout the movie, and is a focus in each of these shots, even though they are technically very well made. It's a reminder that Overwatch exists, and you should be playing it alongside the other stuff that gets advertised throughout the movie. The best part? Activision Blizzard faced a lot of praise for the very things IOI does wonderfully in the movie. The super awesome thing about this movie is that it's good billionaires like Halliday and Wade's victorious friends that will save us. And yet they got the good corporation part right, because not only were they advertising for entities like Activision Blizzard, but also the protagonist shut down the game on Tuesday and Thursday to spend time in the real world, which makes a lot of sense because we are supposed to suspend our disbelief that the premise of that Oasis is this really important thing. especially for the economy, and not to mention it's a great message for everyone everywhere that they should live their life to the fullest. Of course, it's great that players can vote with their dollar in this regard, as corporations will always listen to the consumers. And wade through a raised fist salute at the end, a scene that threw me into tears of joy. To continue this point, the film is dripping with celebrity worship that is often found amongst liberals, which just shows how progressive and endearing this movie really is. The protagonists try to impress each other by being able to name every obscure detail about the creator of the Oasis. And you can bet that's how Halliday decides who is worth inheriting his fortune and property. It's as if this guy is the next coming of Jesus or Muhammad, which is not only awesome, but kind of calming given how we assign similar praise to existing philanthropists and geniuses like Elon Musk. The movie does a very good job portraying that he has many regrets and wishes he could have spent more time in the real world, but his entire competition is one of making up for lost time. We really have to delve deep into his life to the most poignant detail. Halliday is the kind of person everyone should take life lessons from, as he shows that even with all the hardship he has dealt with in his life, he can still make the world a better place. That is a message I think we should all hold close to our hearts for the rest of our lives. Some side things I loved. The designs of Artemis and Parzival look like a strong independent warrior woman and a Final Fantasy character respectively. The visuals were to die for. The Iron Giant cameo is amazing because he's used for battle and it's fucking cool. Finally, the Resistance Artemis sets up falls into the trap of making themselves so fucking distinct with tattoos and graffiti that's no wonder the IOI can track them, but it is a really good design. Now look, I know it's a plot point and it makes a lot of sense. You think a premise obsessed with the 80s would remember the fear of the average Joe being a CIA or KGB operator you couldn't tell apart. On the other hand, I think this point is relevant to a lot of liberals, who for some reason feel the need to make themselves stand out as much as possible during protests, which gives a special uniqueness to every individual, your allies, and family. Please disregard the Black Bloc. They'll destroy Starbucks, and that's just as bad as the Jewish Holocaust.